Hello again, and welcome to our next session on Path to a Perfect 10, the route to plan your upgrade to Domino Traveller Same Time Verse On-Premise version 10, due out later this year. My name's Gab Davis. I'm an IBM Lifetime Champion. I'm an admin of all things. I work with design, deployment, and security of IBM technologies. And I have a playlist on YouTube called #Perfect10 where you'll find all of these videos. So we're splitting this into different sections. Currently we're on Are We Ready? But we're going to move on to how to decide what to upgrade, what you can do in advance, and then solid security. So today I'm going to be talking about Notes clients. Are we ready? How to tell if we're ready with the Notes client? So HCL, who are the developers of the version 10 Notes client, have confirmed that if your Notes clients are on version 901 Fixpack 10, there will be an in-place upgrade to Notes version 10. So you'll be able to upgrade directly from 901 version 10 to Notes version 10. There will also be a new upgrade process that will push the updates from the server down to the clients. And that process is going to be admin controlled. The admins will be able to control the bandwidth, the number of users, and although the users will be able to accept whether or not they want to upgrade at that time, admins will be able to override it and force an upgrade. So getting our environment on 901 version 10, Fixpack 10, ready for version 10 later this year is a really good start to our planning. That gets us in a good position to actually upgrade everyone when the time comes. So what do we need to know? What will it take to upgrade your Notes clients? We need to know where the clients are, what versions they're on. We may need to know if they're single or multi-user installs. We do need to know that. If you don't know that already, that's something you need to find out. Things like where are the data directories stored. You need to make sure that the update is actually going to overwrite the right files and finds the right notes.ini file. The notes.ini file points to the data directory, so understanding where everything is placed in your client infrastructure is very important. So the first thing is working out how many active Notes clients you have. If you know how many you have, you can then plan your upgrade process. When we go to design the server push upgrade, you'll be able to know how many clients are upgrading. You'll be able to plan that properly. That's actually very easy to do. We're going to enable license tracking, which is on the server configuration document. So if you open the configuration document right there on the basics tab, you have an option called license tracking that's set to disabled by default. You just set it to enabled. Now, nothing will happen instantly. You have to give it time to populate. It populates as the users use the system and as they log in. So don't enable this and go look an hour later and be disappointed. You have to give it a bit of time. But what we end up with is license tracker. So you can see this in Domino Administrator on the People and Groups tab. You can also see this if you open the Domino directory, names on SF, in a regular view. So what we have here is through Domino Administrator, I'm showing Domino user license tracking. And we have two categories. We can see by active users, and then we can sort by all of them or by protocol. So in this instance, we're looking at by protocol. We're really interested in Notes clients. If it turns out we've got 5,000 users and 3,500 of them are using HTTP and iNotes, then we're not upgrading the Notes clients for those users. So what license tracking does is it actually logs by protocol, and HTTP and Notes are two of them. It could also log IMAP and SMTP and a bunch of other things. So if you enable license tracking, I'm showing two things on here. This is my demo server, so your results will be much bigger. But on the bottom here, I've got the month of last access and each user. And then to the right, I'm showing by protocol, by server. So you'll see, for example, I'm there accessing using a Notes client on both Orion and Vega. So the sum total here of 8 is actually not the total of all my Notes clients. It's the total of the number of users using a Notes client to access different servers. So if you just want to have a look at all users, you can do that. It's actually obviously a very useful thing to have enabled when you're going to look at licensing or maintenance renewal. The next thing we have is slightly more detailed information, which is client details on the person document. So how this works is the administration tab of each person document contains a list of client versions that that person logs in with. This is populated via an admin P request to update the client information in the person document. So the notes client has a utility function inside it called dynamic client configuration. As the Notes client launches, it actually looks at what version of Notes you're running, the name of your workstation, your operating system environment, and it stores that in your Notes ini in like a hash format that begins DYNINFOCR. That doesn't really matter that much to you because you're never going to look at that. But the important thing to know is when you launch the Notes client, it compares the hash that's created for your current client version platform with the one that's stored in the Notes ini. And if they differ, that means you're using either a different machine or a different operating system or a different version of Notes. And your Notes client will send in an admin request to admin4 telling the server to actually update your person document with this new information. So the admin request contains the hash information generated by the client saying what version and platform and machine name you're running from. So for this to work, admin P must work on your servers. And when we talk a little bit later about health checks, we're going to talk about admin P because it's really important that works and it should work. There are things you need to check to make sure everything's behaving. That's going to make a big difference when you go to upgrade. One thing I would say in Citrix environments, or depending on how you have your Notes client installed, if people are hopping from machine to machine constantly, then you're going to have constant client update requests because the Notes ini will never match the machine you're logged into that time. A lot of people in those circumstances disable that client update request. For the purposes of what we're doing here, we really need that information. So if you have disabled it, take that out. You disable it via a Notes ini setting, which I'm not going to tell you because if you're not using it, we don't want you using it for this. But basically, what this is going to do is populate your person document. So what does that look like? So this is a person document. And what we're seeing here is it's got the Notes client machine you logged into, the Notes client build you're using, including any hot fixes or fix packs, the Notes client platform, and the updated date. So this one I'm showing on screen, there are documents here going back to 2012. This never purges. There's no process for purging this. You can write your own agents to do it, but essentially this contains every record. So I can see, for example, Graham logged in using 901 on two different machines, one in April and one in May. So I might reach out to him if they were different versions, but in fact, I can see they were both 901 with a fixed pack on them. So I'm actually okay with that. I don't need to reach out to him and say, are you still using that version 8.5 client? Because I can see the last time I used the 8.5 client was like 2013. So there's really good information here. It's on the person document on the administration tab. If that's not populated for you, either the user isn't logging in using the Notes client, or in their client-side Notes ini, you might have disabled the dynamic configuration, or your admin process isn't working. But if your admin process isn't working, I suspect you already know that and you've got much bigger problems. So how do I view those client versions? Because I don't want to open every single person document on my system. So in the Domino directory, there is a view called by client version. If you're looking at it in design, it's got an alias of people CLVER. What it shows is every client build entry in each person document. So there'll be multiple entries per person. So back here, where we have like 2, 4, 6, and 12 entries, there will be 12 entries in this view under each version. So this isn't a total of all your current users. This is a total of everything anyone's ever used. So one thing you could do, if you really wanted to, is clear those fields before you start your upgrade. I'm not sure whether I would, but you could. One thing I like to do so I can actually manipulate the information and see what's going on, let's go to this view and choose expand all, and then go to the edit menu, choose select all, and then edit copy selected as table. And now I can paste that into Excel or really anything, and I can sort and filter out things that are, older than a year, and filter out users that are using older versions, and really manipulate the information and get an idea of what's happening in my environment. We're going to talk more about this when we talk about what you want to upgrade, but I want to mention mail files. You need to have an idea of what templates you're using. It's perfectly okay to be using a mail file based on, say, a version 8 template on a version 10 server. There's no reason that shouldn't work. We haven't seen version 10 yet, but IBM historically have always supported older mail files on newer servers, so there's no reason to expect they wouldn't now. However, if you have a custom template, let's say you're on 901 and you have a custom mail template, then you're going to want to update that custom template with version 10 design elements when the time comes. The good news is you don't have to rush to upgrade your mail templates. You can, as I say, upgrade the server and upgrade the clients, and older mail files and older mail templates will still continue working. However, a lot of the features you're going to get with the Notes client version 10 will be dependent on you having the version 10 mail template. There are features that have been announced that are going to be in the version 10 mail template. So that's something you're going to want to consider. At what point do you upgrade your mail files and the mail design? And to do that, you really need to get a grasp on what mail templates you're using. So if you go to the Files tab in Domino Administrator, there's a column in there showing the template for each database. So if you go and look in your mail directory whether your mail files are, and again, you can copy that, you can select it all and copy it out to a spreadsheet and manipulate it in there and see if there are any templates that need updating between now and when you plan your major upgrade. So what's missing for what we've got? We know there are no native tools in Notes that allow you to review the client-side Notes init. There are no native tools that will tell you how the client is installed, whether it's a single user or a roaming or where the data directory is. There are no native tools to tell you if the user has any local replicas. If you don't know that already, if you don't know in your environment, oh, we're all roaming and we use Windows profiles, or this is what we do, if you don't have a grasp of that, and there are things you need to know for your planning, I recommend using one of the notes management tools. Panagenda do one called Marvel Client, and BCC do one, do Client Genie. I'm very sure there are others. I promise you, I have searched. I cannot find much reference to any others. Please feel free to contact me if you have another tool that does this kind of deep client-side audit. So, where are we now? At this point, you should understand how many Notes clients you have, as well as which users are active. You should also be able to identify any older clients that may need upgrading in advance of version 10 and follow up with the users concerned. It's going to make much simpler for you if all your clients are on the same version, preferably 901 Fixback 10, before you start your version 10 upgrades. Everyone that's not is going to cause you additional work because they won't align to the same plan that you're using for everyone else. You should have a guide on what operating system the Notes clients are using, whether they're Windows or what platform, or whether they're Mac or what platform. That's going to give you an idea of how to plan your upgrade as well. If you don't know enough about your installs, like where the data directories are, if they're a single multi-user, if they're basic or standard Notes client deployments, you can deploy a management tool to get that additional information. That's always a good idea. If there's no one in your environment, if you don't have a good grasp of how things have been deployed, one thing we see quite a lot is people kind of mapping network drives to use for their data directory, and then as the users log in, they get a different network drive. Well, one of the big things that happens when you do that is the data directories don't tend to be updated very successfully. So understanding where the data directories are, how people are mapping them, where the notes and iFiles are, all of that is important environment. And you have plenty of time between now and when version 10 comes out to gather that information if you don't already have it. So all of this is to help get you to the standard version and environment before version 10 comes out to make that upgrade hopefully seamless. So that's it for our Notes client audit. Next up, we'll be looking at are we ready system requirements, reviewing server-side system requirements, also client-side system requirements, and then after that, when, how, and what am I going to upgrade? Thank you very much.